Welcome on our Sunday evening lectures and study activities. Today we want to make a start with a new tradition, we hope. We called it the Blavatsky lecture series, and we like to, from now on, invite one or two speakers each season outside our organization. And we start this evening with Elton Hall presenting a lecture called The One Life and the Pāramitā Path. So Elton is our first guest speaker to start this tradition. And to say a few words about Elton, Elton Hall teaches philosophy and religion studies at several universities and college for over 30 years. He encountered Theosophy in 1967, joined the United Lodge of Theosophists in Santa Barbara, California. He now lives in I.S.I.S, New York, and he is also a member of the International Theosophical Conference, a board member, I must say. And he is a very appreciated theosophical speaker all over the world. Welcome, Elton. Elton will present this lecture in 3 blocks, like we always do on the Sunday evening. Each block will be closed with a 3-minute break, giving you the opportunity to think about questions and put them forward in the chat or on the Zoom. And after the 3 minutes break, the first thing, if Elton starts again, he will answer that questions and then he will present the next block. And so we will have 3 blocks for this evening. So Elton will present this evening the lecture, and next Sunday he will conduct a study class about this lecture. So what you have to keep in mind, everybody is welcome on the study if he have followed this lecture, because we like to concentrate on the subject of this lecture, and also the preparations of the people should be focused on that as well. So Elton, I should say welcome, and you can make a start for your first block.
Thank you, Herman, and thank you for that lovely introduction. This first block will be just preliminaries. Then the second block will deal with the one life, and the third block with the Pāramitas. In considering the one life and the Pāramitas, we will be exploring the fundamental reality of manifestation and the way to realize it. To do so, we will rely primarily on the secret doctrine and the voice of the silence, both published by that great teacher, Helena P. Blavatsky. As an aid to understanding, we first consider the terms theosophy and theosophist, the difference between belief and knowledge, and the ideas behind the concepts exoteric, esoteric, and occult. Theosophy and theosophist have a broad range of interrelated meanings. HPB said that anyone who seeks the good of humanity and helps those in need without expectation of reward is a theosophist, no matter what label he or she may accept. This is theosophy in its most general sense, and we all know individuals who fit this description, even though they may never have heard the word theosophy or think of themselves as theosophists. Then there are those who encounter the theosophical teachings found in the works of HPB, William Quan Judge, and other writers. As students of those writings, who accept them, attempt to understand them, and in various ways try to make use of them, they are theosophists in the more focused sense of followers of theosophy as set out in the founding of the modern theosophical movement in 1875 and beyond. For the world at large, This is most likely the meaning attached to these terms today. But HVB also said that Theosophy is the accumulated wisdom of the ages, and that portion of it which can be shared with humanity at the present time. This is more than any but the highest adepts comprehend, and we share in it to the degree that our own self-devised efforts enable us to do so. What is it to enter the treasure house of Theosophy? That depends on the individual. As divine beings, each of us presently incarnated in a body, which, when seen from the standpoint of our immortal nature, is an illusion, but in and through which we encounter the world and act in life. We are born with a history of myriad incarnations, and so bear samskaras, deep dispositions and propensities which limit our experience of the divine light of reality, and skandhas, traits including incarnate consciousness that allow us to be incarnated beings, but also limit our thought, feeling, volition, and capacity for action. What our consciousness experiences is taken as real, so that reality is relative to the level of consciousness we have at any time. As a consequence, some of us are on the doorstep of the treasure house. Others are in the atrium, yet others in various rooms, and the most spiritually aware are in the treasury itself. This, of course, is a metaphor. William Quan Judge used a different metaphor in the ocean of Theosophy. Theosophy is like an ocean, he said, and we may stand on the shore and gaze at it, or step gingerly into its edge on the beach, or wade into some depth, or plunge in at many depths, since its expanse and depth are infinite. These metaphors suggest that being a theosophist will be something distinct for each individual, and those who attempt to penetrate theosophy at ever more profound levels will find that name changing its meaning. And yet theosophy is for all. Every human being is invited to take what she or he can use. All can be theosophists, whatever one's situation or condition in life. And William Quan Judge reminds us, if we find theosophy at any level meaningful, we have been here before. Obviously, we cannot judge where others are, even in the effort to understand theosophy. Nor can we accurately judge ourselves. So we are encouraged to move on and go as deeply as we can into this endless ocean. Rather than get depressed over what we see as our limitations, we should be grateful that our past efforts and karma have brought us to this wonderful, promising, and powerful encounter again. There is a distinction between belief and knowledge. We read the Bhagavad Gita, the Voice of the Silence, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Secret Doctrine, and other theosophical writings, and sense their truth. We sense that they make sense, that they speak with unquestionable authority. Such a response is our higher nature reflecting itself in our incarnated forms. But unless we are as enlightened as a Mahatma, we begin with belief, not knowledge. And we should note, sensation and information are not themselves knowledge. The ancient Greek initiate Plato pointed out 2.5 millennia ago that ultimately real knowing and being are one. In this view, we are in practice what we know. And most of us find ourselves saturated with ignorance. So when we study the theosophical teachings, we believe they are true. Plato also noticed that it is quite possible to have true beliefs. But in true belief, we do not know the belief is true. We only believe that it is true. Of course, if we have a belief, we believe it is true. So there is no distinction in embodied consciousness between false beliefs and true beliefs. Knowledge is invariably true. To gain knowledge is more than to have true beliefs. So the question naturally arises, what can we do to gain knowledge? The answer is the Theosophical path. HV used three concepts, sometimes with clear distinctions between them, and at other times more loosely, depending on the context. They are exoteric, esoteric, and occult. Something is exoteric if it is public, available to anyone interested, and this is why HPB noted that the secret doctrine is exoteric. Something is esoteric if it is hidden, but the esoteric can be so in different ways. Contemporary quantum physics is esoteric to many of us, and Dutch is esoteric to this student. With proper study and preparation, however, they can be made exoteric. Serious effort is required to reveal the contents of Dutch or quantum physics. And here is a clue. One can learn a language to the extent that one can request a particular meal at a restaurant or get directions to a hotel. One can learn enough to easily read a newspaper or even a novel. But to fully master a language, to grasp its nuances, to write significant poetry in the language, this requires much more. Similarly, we can read books on quantum physics written by authors who can explain the subject to an intelligent audience. But that is not mastering quantum physics. Much remains esoteric, even when much has become exoteric. In this sense, the secret doctrine is still esoteric to the casual reader. Here, HPB deployed the ancient Hindu ideas of Pāramitā Satya, absolute truth, and Samvriti Satya, relative truth. Something can be true relative to the context and to the level of awareness brought to it. But short of absolute awareness, absolute consciousness, truths can be relative in this sense. Truths will be relative in this sense. So the esoteric can remain in the exoteric, waiting to be discerned by the serious student. And even when we discern something esoteric, we need to be aware that there are levels of the esoteric within the esoteric. And then there is the occult. The occult can again simply mean hidden, but it also points to learning that is transforming, not just thinking, but learning that is transforming not just of thinking, but of being, of how one lives in the world, while not being part of the world. Esoteric understanding penetrates the nature of things. Occult understanding transforms one's conscious being. Rather than something, a writing, an action, a conversation, being either exoteric or esoteric or occult, it can be all three. Our level of consciousness will determine how we take it, what we see, and what we understand. So Plato could say in his second and seventh letters that he never wrote down his real philosophy. Yet the discerning reader of his many dialogues can see that philosophy at many unspoken levels. Exoteric fades into esoteric, and esoteric fades into occult, hence the notion of relative truths. They are not falsehoods, but they are true only from certain perspectives and at certain levels of manifestation. From the point of view adopted in this discussion, the secret doctrine can be seen as esoteric in exoteric clothing, and the voice of the silence can be seen as occult in esoteric clothing, wearing an exoteric topcoat. All of this is relevant to the one life, which is the reality of the many features of manifestation, and the Pāramitas, which are fundamental to the realization of that one life, which we are, if we but knew it. And here, knowing is nothing less than being. If we can keep all this in mind, we'll be able to grasp how the Pāramitas lead the pilgrim soul to the one life, which we ultimately are. Let's take a break here.
Thank you. We will have a 3 minutes break, so everybody can write questions in the YouTube chat. And after the break, we will first start with the questions, and then Elton will continue with his lecture. Okay, welcome back. Okay, Erwin, are there questions?
Well, because of the bad connection, the viewers, of course, missed a part. So I don't know, Elton, is it possible for you to maybe just give some key thoughts to repeat those thoughts that you brought in the first part? Is that something we can ask you?
Sure, of course. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the term Theosophy and Theosophist, only because it has a wide range of meanings. From anybody who lives benevolently in the world could be considered a Theosophist. Those who study Theosophy can be considered Theosophists. And those who aspire to the Pāramitā path in a much more focused sense are Theosophists. And then I wanted to draw a distinction between believing and knowing, because if Theosophy speaks to us, it's a good sign we've been here before in some way in this process. So we should heed those intuitions that we have that something is very true about this, but still, that's just belief at our level until we make it real knowledge, and real knowledge is a transformation of who we are, where we are. And then I drew a bit of a distinction between exoteric, esoteric, and occult, because what is exoteric is out there and in the public. And so HPB once said the secret doctrine is, in this sense, exoteric. But esoteric is hidden. One has to kind of penetrate a veil of mystery to get to it. The secret doctrine is also esoteric to the serious reader, who begins to read those words very carefully and in context and so on. But the occult has to do with more than just penetrating an understanding, but actually beginning to tread a path of self-transformation. And that though we use those words loosely, you can kind of draw those distinctions. That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Maybe I can ask a question or say something about believing and knowledge. Because for me that is a very important, let's say, subject. What you see quite often, if people listen to a speaker, a Theosophical speaker in this case, and he speaks very well, it sounds all very logic, and they say, oh yes, nice, nice. They believe it, but it is no knowledge yet. And for me, to become to knowledge is quite a process that can take days, can months, or even years before you have the real own experience in life. Yes, now I see it happen before my eyes. Now I am third witness, and now, yes, now it is something for myself. Yeah. Do you agree with this, or do you like to remark on it?
No,
and feel free, eh? Feel free.
Exactly right.
Yeah, feel free. Because one of the things I don't like, but that is my personal approach, is that people start to believe Theosophy because we are not waiting for another religion. Yeah, we want to build knowledge. Yeah, yeah, Aaron.
Elton, another question. You stressed in your talk Plato saying knowing equalizes being. Real knowledge equalizes being. What is your view on the because the modern theosophy was brought in the end by the masters of wisdom and compassion, who are of course exemplary of their knowledge, but for us average human beings, this knowledge sometimes is not it's hard for us to become, like to say, exemplars of that. What is your view on how to approach that?
That's what we're going to hear when we come to the third part of the talk on the Pāramitā path.
Yeah.
It really depends upon self-devised efforts, and that means one has to have a sense of what the self is, what oneself is, ultimately, and then how you approach becoming consciously aware of the self one ultimately is, and that's the Pāramitā path. So that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with in the rest of this evening.
Okay, we're looking forward to it.
Okay. Yes, Elton, feel free to present your second part.
This second section, I will give you a heads up. The second section is going to be on the one life. The third section is going to be on the Pāramitā path.